Hello and welcome to the Dave C Show. Today we have Kelly back once again. How are you, Kelly?
I'm great. Thank you
That's
for
good.
having me back on.
Oh, thanks for coming back on. It was only a few days ago that we did our last video, but we had such a good time that we thought we'd do another one on something that we touched on in the last video, but something we didn't really delve very deep into, and that is Satanism in politics and in the entertainment industry, and perhaps other things, where it's kind of just popped up in everyday life. Really, it seems like the more that you become aware of this stuff, it's really easy to spot now. Like for me, I was only kind of aware of it, pretty much in the last 6 months, 6 to 12 months, and
Right.
and somebody sent me a video of a festival over in Tasmania, Hobart, which is the capital city of Tasmania, which is on the east coast of the southeast of Australia. And they have this massive festival there, and it's very, very satanic, and it's quite disconcerting watching the footage, because it's like all these people, I don't even think they know what they're doing, to be honest. They're they're just
Yeah.
kind of following the crowd. And there's like this one part of it where I'm pretty sure they have all these cows' guts and stuff, and like insides and stuff. But they have this part of the festival where they just smear blood all over themselves, and it's cow's
Oh my God.
supposed to be cow's blood. And then there's like other parts in the same room. It's kind of like if you imagine like a martial arts tournament or something going on, and the people all around the side, and the the center attraction is people with the blood and stuff. And then at the front of the room, there's like three crosses, right? And people kind of do like a fake crucifixion or something, and it's
Right.
very symbolic. And
Mm.
in one of the near the I think it's one of the I've never been to Hobart, but one of the harbors there, they have this upside down cross, and it's like, you know on some building, or it's just there by itself. I'm not sure, but it's there, and it's got red lights around it. And I'm just watching this thing, and I'm just like, what the hell is this? Like, we haven't had anything like that here, as far as I know, but in my city. But
Right.
it's just crazy watching it. People kind of doing this stuff that I don't even really think they know why they're doing it, or maybe they think it's fun. Like, I don't even even before any of this, I wouldn't have ever thought that smearing yourself with cow's blood would have been very fun. But some people, to each their own.
Right. Well, I think a lot of the lure and attraction of it is that it's something that seems so different from organized religion and almost more exciting that it
Yeah, I
like
was just going to
draws
say
them
that.
in. Yeah. Because people are bored with religion. They know that they're not being told the whole truth
No.
about it. So those people are the ones that the satanic bunch can like really grab a hold of, because
Mm,
they are thirsty for knowledge and for some type of experience that will make them feel more alive.
mm,
And,
sure.
religion doesn't do that anymore. And so it's kind of almost seductive or sexy to a lot of people, you
Mm,
know, which is a shame because if we would really just teach the way that I know we should be taught, that's so much more exciting than all of this dark, heavy, negative energy like
yeah.
you're describing. You know,
Yeah.
it's a
Well,
much lighter type of excitement.
yeah. I think the problem with, I mean, I'm not religious, but the funny thing is that, and I've heard other people say this as well, is that either they weren't religious when they grew up, or they were, their family was quite religious, so it's kind of foisted upon you, in that
Yeah.
situation, in that case. And sometimes you tend to rebel if that's the case. If something's foisted
Hmm.
upon you, you kind of want to. There's a resistance there, and
Right.
what I think, and what I found is actually finding God on your own terms. I think is important. You know, like
Yes.
like I'm not religious at all. I went to church a couple of times as a kid, but in the last year, I found God on my terms, and I was spiritual before then, but the two kind of go hand in hand a little bit, but also at the same time, they almost don't go hand in hand. If you know what I mean, if you look at
Yeah,
it a certain
exactly.
way. Yeah.
Hmm.
So what I thought would be cool today is to discuss the topics we've decided on, and also maybe first of all kind of discover why Satanism is such a driving force behind, why is it there in the first place, and how did it find its way into these facets of society?
Well, I think it's there in the first place. Uh, like, for example, to go back to the stories of the fallen angels, right? Who were the fallen angels? Um, they were the minions, for lack of a better word, of humans, of earthlings. They were to be our assistants,
Right.
and they were jealous of us having more love or favoritism, if you will, from God, because we were created in his image
Hmm.
and they were as a helper race. And so they were jealous. So then you've got the fallen angels who went against God's will and God's divine plan and
Right.
decided that they were going to try to take over. And of course, God gave them the opportunity to do such a thing because he knew that they would not succeed in the end. And,
I see.
flash forward to present day, and we're in that final battle now.
Yeah.
And, you know, nothing can stop what's coming.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why they're there to begin with, in my opinion.
Right.
That's where the reptilians fit in, and the satanic cults and all of the above. They are to try to lure in as many earthlings as they possibly can. And in the process, they've woven into our history, our religion, our education systems, every facet of our life to warp the history, to warp the truth, to hide and shield and veil who we really are so that they could win. And I
Right.
mean, we've all heard the stories about the tricksters or the devil that's deceiving,
Mm.
right? And that's exactly what has taken place, is that they have deceived and manipulated and worked in pretty much every avenue they could reach, whether it was Hollywood, politics, you name it.
Education.
They've gotten to all of it. The education, yeah, everything, even the healthcare industry.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, they've got their talents in everything.
Yeah. And have you seen the Usual Suspects? That film with Kevin Spacey and
I don't think I have.
okay, one of the quotes in that, because basically what it is, Kevin Spacey, he's Kaiser Sose, he's like the devil in the film, and he one of the quotes that he says is the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he didn't exist, he doesn't exist, and
Yeah,
it's true, isn't it? Because you up until I don't know, in the last 12 months for me, you kind of, and this is something we talk about how a lot of celebrities they sell their soul, and you're like, well, who'd they sell it to? I mean, it's obvious they sold it to the person we're thinking of, but does he really exist? And the truth is he does, but he convinced everybody that was all just make believe.
right. Is well, yes and no, because it's not like there's a devil, but there is evil, right? And
Right.
they because there was more than one fallen angel,
Okay.
okay? So there's more than one devil, if you will. Um, and for me, I always wanted to say there's no such thing as the devil, only evil, because I felt like there's power in names. And if you give power to the belief in him
Mm.
or it, then you're allowing it to grow,
Sure.
which is true on one hand. But then on the other hand, also, we have to acknowledge that exists and that it is manipulating people and taking control of them, taking over their free will of choice. And so we have to acknowledge that, even if we don't like give it a name and give it power that way, we have to acknowledge our adversary, is what I'm saying. Right? I mean, you have to acknowledge that you do have an adversary. There is a yin and yang, and black and white, good and evil.
Is Satan, is it an actual being? I mean, as an entity?
I mean, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Is there a type of species that would be what we would think of as Satan? Sure. I think there's definitely a race of beings that are the devil incarnate.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. I did hear that there was an actual, I can't remember that there was a being, or something like
well, there were many of them. There was Baal, there was Moloch,
okay, yeah, sure.
Jezebel. There were several of them that they worship and they give more power to than others. But like in the book of Enoch, he has a whole list of all of the deities of the fallen angels in classes of daemons and jinn and so forth. And they all have a name, and there is power in a name. So if you worship one specific devil more than another, you're giving more power to that devil.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that would segue really well into the entertainment industry, because what I hear quite often is in some interviews and things like that celebrities will mention the name Satan, or they'll, or Lucifer perhaps, and sometimes there's a joke, sometimes you can't really tell if it's a joke or not, right? But sometimes they laugh about it, so they try and make it a joke. But let's talk about how it found its way into how, I guess, where the entertainment industry started, if you know the answer to that, because I don't, and how it was embedded in there, and how early on was it, from the start, or was it a little bit later on?
Well, okay, here's my take on it. As I told you in the other interview, I feel like the star seeds came here to assist with the ascension that is to take place. Well, the fallen ones are just as aware of the Star Children's plan as the Star Children are aware of what they are trying to do to manipulate the souls. So we have this almost level playing field of knowledge of what the other one's goal is, or outcome that they want to achieve. And a lot of the Star Children were born with talents that would gain them publicity, make them famous, if you will. So they were going to be going into Hollywood, into the music industry, into movies or TV or, whatever. And so what's the best way to take out your opponent at their knees is to beat them at their own game, right? So the Satanists were interwoven into Hollywood, into music, into politics, into everything. So that anybody that was trying to do good for mankind and raise their vibration and bring them a higher sense of joy and a better life has been thwarted by the negative aspects, or the dark energies, or the devils that are in the world.
Yeah.
Because they want to win. right? Because if we all ascend enough, there's power in numbers. We take them out without even having to lift a finger. We take them out. We remove them from the equation. If
Yeah.
there's no fear and there's no worry and there's no pain and there's no trauma and there's no turmoil and there's no starvation and homelessness, and we, there's cures for everything. If we gave those things to the world, they have nothing to feed off of. They have no purpose anymore. They're inconsequential to us. Your arm disappeared.
I know. I just saw that.
You hologram.
Because I'm a hologram. Yeah. Funny. But no, it's interesting. I was thinking about that recently, especially because with what's happening in the world right now, there's one Australian that I've seen, a celebrity that is. He's a sportsman. He seems to be the only one that I know of who's actually speaking out about what's going on. And I was at the gym and I was thinking about this. It's like, why? Well, not why, but this is why everybody's bought and sold. Everybody's bought and paid for, because if they weren't, imagine how many celebrities out there that have such massive platforms, that if they weren't bought and
Could be
paid
such
for,
an influence.
oh yeah, then this whole narrative wouldn't have lasted
Yeah.
2 seconds, like,
Right.
so they have to infiltrate everything. It's the only way they can do it, because if they don't, they lose. And that's why
Right.
you see them in all these different industries, in particular the entertainment industry.
But that's the thing. We almost think kind of on a small perspective by viewing it as only being infiltrated in the education, in the medical field, in Hollywood, in politics, because you and I also, just average human beings, we were bought and traded at birth. We're all slaves to the system.
100%.
Yeah. And until we wake up to that and take back our power, we remain slaves.
Yeah, it's definitely far beyond. I mean, it's really just in here, isn't it? I mean, that's where they get you. It's the only way they can really, not the only way. It's one of the biggest ways that they can get you is through your mind. Right? Mind control
mind manipulation.
So powerful. Yeah.
And look, here's the beautiful thing. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that it's studying, over the last few years, I studied the human mind, and it really became very apparent to me just how simple it is when you have the power to control the narrative through movies and mainstream media, and not just that, but also obviously the education system and everything else that's out there that we consume, that we can't consciously reject, or with these ideas that we're brought on board because that's what we're taught is true. Like, it's no wonder they've been able to get so far with this plan, because we've been mind controlled and we don't even know it. And even if we are consciously aware of it, we still can't subconsciously reject those ideas.
We allow it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's actually what I was going to say, is that the simplicity in all of this is really that if we realize that the matrix that we live in is really something we allowed them to create in our mind, but it's not in reality, all we have to do is free our mind and we're out of the matrix.
True.
And it's just like that song, Free Your Mind, and the rest will follow.
I was listening to that a few days ago, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like that. It's actually that simple.
Simple, but not easy.
I mean, how mind-blowing is that?
Yeah, no, I agree. But there's also a good quote, which is, the hardest prison to escape is the prison in your mind, because it's true.
Exactly.
It's a very difficult place to get out of. And, for anybody that's been able to unplug from the matrix, that's a feat in and of itself. Like, it's not easy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's the main part of my mission, really, is to show people that we have this very easy ability to simply change our thoughts. And if you just simply change your thoughts, and it's like easy said, but not easy done, right?
Yeah.
But to simply change your thoughts can truly free you.
Yeah, I agree.
Like truly.
One of the biggest challenges, though, when it comes to changing your thoughts is that your thoughts come from your belief system. So you kind of need to change your beliefs first. And that's a challenge. You can have, in any moment, you can say, okay, let me think about something positive. That's cool. You can do that. But to keep that going is a challenge, because eventually your belief system is going to override your thoughts. And that's where your thoughts originate.
Because you have to deprogram.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because it was ingrained in us from birth.
Think about how many decades of programming we've all experienced,
right?
You know? And
right.
Yeah, so it's definitely deeply ingrained, but it is really the first step. I mean, if you change your beliefs, your whole world will change, and that includes the Matrix. But just while we're on the topic of the entertainment industry, then you mentioned Star Children as being, obviously in any industry or anywhere there's going to be Star Children, right? Because they're all over the place, but especially the entertainment industry is one place that they wanted to get some big influence for that reason, because they couldn't have these positive people, spreading messages of love and stuff like that when they want the exact opposite for the world. So who in your mind are you thinking that are Star Children right now they're kind of in the limelight?
Oh my gosh. Pretty much everyone that has ever like grabbed a hold of your heart and your attention from Hollywood. Ariana Grande,
right.
Angelina Jolie, Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
What is her name? Taylor Swift.
Yeah. And
all of these people were star children that were tainted. Chris Cornell, Robin Williams, that boy from Lincoln Park. I can't never remember his name.
Chester
Bennington.
Yeah, Bennington. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, star children, all of them. Star children.
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix was a star child.
Right. And out of all the people that are well, what percentage do you think haven't been tainted out of the star children in the entertainment industry?
In Hollywood?
Yeah. You think any?
A very, very small percentage. Yeah. Like I could name a few if I could remember their names. The man that played on the sitcom Silver Spoon that was in the 80s.
Oh, I don't know that one.
I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, but he's one of them that escaped it. Drew Barrymore is kind of borderline, like they keep trying to drag her in, I feel like, but she is awake enough that she tries to stay away from it as much as she can.
Yeah, but she was a child actor, so she would have been
most of them
exposed to it as a kid, unfortunately.
Exactly. So that means that she went through a lot of the MK Ultra stuff, the sex slave stuff. Same as Ariana Grande. I believe that she was probably involved in some of that, what they call it, like the dollhouse type part of the program.
Okay, I'm not sure. I haven't heard of that.
I mean, I can't say with a surety that happened to them because I don't know their story, but just going off of my intuition and my vibration of their vibration signatures. I feel their pain on a very deep level, that they put on a good face for,
Right.
because a lot of times in that industry and in some other industries, you'll find that the victim actually becomes the perpetrator in order to not have to be the victim any further.
Right. I heard that.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
It makes sense. Yeah, it does make sense, unfortunately. And I heard that talking about, certain families where they have, it's very, normal in their family that they do all these
Right.
terrible things.
Yeah.
And in order to, like, it's always like you want to go to the next level, because the next level, the higher you go, the less and less, well, the less of a victim you could be, I suppose. You wouldn't be,
Right.
the higher you go,
Right.
eventually you'll get to a point where you're not the victim anymore. Um,
Right.
in some ways, but of course, in other ways, you're definitely still a victim of a lot of other things, in,
Yeah.
mm. And
Yeah. And
ultimately,
this isn't just, go
ultimately,
ahead.
every, ultimately, everybody, no matter how high they are, in my opinion, they're all a victim of the the reptilians, or
The
they're all
abuse.
yeah, they're all a victim of
Yeah.
Satan, or
They
whoever it
were,
is.
they were prey. They
Mm.
were preyed upon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not exclusive to Hollywood and politicians and the music industry and stuff like that. I mean, this goes out, this is far reaching. Children that are in orphanages, children who are victims of abuse from their parents and have troubled lives, runaway teenagers, all of those people are also preyed upon and then brought into these groups.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
It's
really, I think that was the whole notion behind, or the whole motive behind the MK Ultra stuff, was to go even deeper into it. This wasn't just experiments with a handful of kids. They wanted to understand how to manipulate the population, society
right.
itself as a whole.
Yeah. In terms of, like, the actual, because I don't know a huge amount about MK Ultra. I've seen a few videos here and there of people, some experiments, but did you mean that they wanted to influence the adult population on the same level, like with those experiments, or maybe in different ways? You know what I mean? Like, because we're all kind of MK
Well,
Ultras
they test
in some ways with the.
exactly. We are right. They tested some of it on unwitting adults, but the majority of it was done to the children so that they could grow into controllable adults.
Yeah, sure, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I mean, our whole past year is kind of a perfect example of a test run of how well it's all played out for them.
Mm, yeah, that's why it's interesting. You see, because how they want us to move towards this technocracy where we're all connected to the you know to the
Yeah.
intelligence, the artificial spirit
AI.
up there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
The AI God.
yeah, exactly. And that's why they make it so we can get very very used to the technology. Like, everybody has a phone, everybody is connected to the internet. Even
Yeah.
kids these days have phones. Like, it's ridiculous. You see kids
Right.
in
Little
primary school.
kids.
Yeah, primary school, they have
Yeah.
phones, or they have iPads. Like, why the hell would they need that?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
it's just getting them ready for later, and getting them used to it. And
Plug them in. Yeah.
yeah.
It's just like those last couple of episodes of the X-Files that they just aired a few years ago.
Right. I
It's
didn't see
just like
them.
that episode.
I didn't see
It's
them.
like plugging you into the AI God, the mainframe.
Actually, but I did see an excerpt from one of those episodes, and it was they were, I think Mulder was talking about it to Scully, and he was pretty much talking about well, just the governments of the world, really. And she was like, and I don't think Scully was completely on board, was she, in that episode? Like Mulder was
No.
saying something, and she was like, "You sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist or something."
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's funny because all the things that are happening now are the things that the quote unquote conspiracy theorists were talking about, last year, many years ago, even like David Icke, he's been talking about it for decades, and now it's coming to fruition. And so people can't necessarily throw that term around anymore because they're not really theorists and there's nothing theoretical about it. It's happening in reality.
Right. I'm looking up who the I forget. Oh, it's Disturbed. You know the Sound of Silence?
Yeah.
The song?
Yeah, I know the song.
Think about the words to that song and put it in this perspective of everyone plugging into an AI god.
Yeah.
Right? Do you get what I'm saying? Like everybody walks around in total silence with these phones in their hands. Even the dating world these days, people would rather talk to you through a text and send you pictures than to actually meet you in person and have a real human connection with you. Teenagers don't know how to have a real conversation with anyone anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, we are living out the lyrics of that song, The Sound of Silence.
Right. It's interesting. I sing that song quite often because I was learning it.
I love it.
And
that's like my favorite song.
Especially the Disturbed version, because my singing teacher a few years ago, he said, "You know what you should sing? You should sing this song." And he put it on. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, it's a really hard song to sing." He's like, "It is hard, but I can help you." And so I've been kind of singing it ever since then. And but yeah, it is a crazy song, and obviously Simon Garfunkel wrote that song, but it's so lyrically it's
also Star Child.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes
sense. Also Star Children. Yeah, and so is the lead singer of Disturbed.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, and it's such a crazy. There are so many songs throughout history that are really really impactful, but also sometimes like there's that song. What's the song? I think the band's called The Fifth Dimension. Do you know the one? Let the Sunshine In. Let the sunshine. Let the sunshine in. Anyway,
I don't think I know it.
Okay, but that band's called The Fifth Dimension, and it kind of, listening to that song, it kind of goes back to what's happening, with the sun now, and also the dual suns, in many ways.
Right. Right.
And it's just funny that the band's called The Fifth Dimension. You know what I mean? And this band was from the 60s or the 70s or something. So.
Right. Well, there were Star Children then.
True.
Yeah. And all of us do our part to put information out there that will resonate and make an imprint on your soul to help you wake up.
It makes you look at the universe in such a completely different way, because a lot of people think that, and I was guilty of that too, and I think most people were, especially if you're plugged into the matrix, you just think life is just this completely kind of
linear.
Yeah, linear. It's like when you die, that's it. Nothing happens after that.
Right. Black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I think is funny, and maybe you can clear this up for me, because a lot of people think that life is determined. Have a deterministic view, of life, and it's like, well, life is the way it is, and everything happens because that's just the way it's supposed to happen. Kind of fate it's like fate. I was fated to live this boring existence, maybe, as an accountant or whatever, because I was an accountant for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what my life is going to be like. And then you kind of go through I went through a phase where I started to make different decisions in life and try to improve my life. And then you look back and you go, well, we actually create fate ourselves, in many ways. We kind of, by the decisions that we make, we create what happens as a result of those decisions. But then if you go even deeper, so I went from like believing in fate to not believing in fate to now almost believing in fate again from a different perspective. And what I mean by that is,
Yes.
do you know what I mean? It's like,
yes,
your life is a series of, I like to think of it as a big flow chart, and every decision you make may have, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 possibilities that come off of that decision, and you take one and then another 5, 10 or 15
probability.
Yeah. So in some ways, yes, you do make your own. I mean, you create your own life for sure. But in other ways, it's already kind of predetermined for you, depending on the decisions that you make. So it's very confusing. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I feel like, just like I know that I came here for a mission, there is no set one way for that mission to play out, because there's odds of probability. Every choice has a ripple effect.
Yeah.
So we aren't in control of our own fate and destiny. But at the same time, a certain amount of it is actually our fate and destiny to experience.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
And then you kind of think about it and you go, well, if I hadn't made that decision back in 2013 or something, then that none of this would have happened, right? But you don't know what would have happened if you didn't make that decision then. What would have happened a few years later?
Right.
Maybe you met somebody else. Maybe you met someone that propelled your life in a different direction, and you ended up at the exact same point. Like, it's so crazy how you can send yourself nuts thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do feel like a certain amount of it, regardless of the choices we make, we are going to end up at the place we're supposed to be when we're supposed to be there. Because, Source has it all worked out. Every detail of everything. The odds of probability are allowable because the end goal will always be the same, no matter what.
Right. Yeah.
That's why I say nothing can stop the awakening.
I kind of think
there
of
may
it
be
now.
1,000 different ways we can get there.
Yeah.
Right. There may be 1,000 different ways we can get there, but nothing will stop us from getting there.
Yeah.
It will happen.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. It's the momentum has already been built up, so much that it's unstoppable. But I kind of think of it like when you said that you're being steered in a certain direction, and like if you're like in a car or something and you're trying to go right, but then another car's there pushing you left. It's like you're going along your life and you're in this vehicle, and maybe Source is guiding you to go in a certain direction, but the decisions you're making is making you go the opposite way, perhaps, for whatever reason.
Right.
Eventually you'll end up over there. It just depends on what route you take to get there.
Right.
And if you keep making funny decisions, then you kind of, you're kind of fighting the force a bit.
Right. Exactly. It's like you're trying to swim upstream.
Yeah. And until you start making decisions that are in line with that direction, then things will flow smoothly. Things will feel like doors are open, and you meet the right people, and you make the right connections, and certain things happen, and
right, because you start going with the current instead of against it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And the Hopi even talk about that, not to cling to the edge of the bank, but to flow with the water.
Yeah.
Go with the flow. Don't resist. Don't resist it. Go with where your heart and your soul is telling you to go.
Yeah, and that's very challenging to do because
Oh, indeed.
because of the matrix because of the matrix we've been taught not to follow our heart, and we need to go and do, you know.
And that we're not worthy.
Mm,
We're not important enough to follow our heart,
exactly.
and we're taught service to others, but we're never taught honest to goodness service to self, that good, healthy, loving yourself that's from a non-ego based heart center.
Mm,
And so if you don't know how to truly love yourself, then how the hell can you possibly listen to your inner knowing and your inner calling and your heart? You don't.
yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, it becomes very difficult, and that's also one of the reasons why we're in the situation that we're in now, because we weren't taught to love ourselves, and we weren't able to follow that guidance system, and we weren't able to. People don't trust themselves enough to, like what we were talking about before.
Right.
I don't know if it was on camera; it might have been off camera, but yeah, people we aren't no we aren't trusting ourselves enough to say, okay, well, even though I can see all this crazy stuff that doesn't make sense, I'm still for some reason
Yeah.
going to believe the mainstream media because I've been believing them for the last 30, 40, 50 years,
Right. We were taught they were a trusted source.
Mm, yeah. And it's very difficult for
And it's
people to,
it's hard to unteach people that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I never watched any news really. So
Yeah.
on one hand, you could say I was very ignorant about what was going on in the world, and it's true. But that gave me,
Yep.
I wonder if it was uh, an innate knowing that I didn't even need to look at it, if you know what I mean, because it never really interested me. Maybe,
Right. Yeah.
and because I didn't have that influence, when I found out about it that it was all bullshit, it didn't matter to me at all because I never watched it. So
Right.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. It made it easier for you. I think that's
yeah,
got something to do with being a star seed, though. We're not so interested in the bullshit stuff. If we
yeah,
see it as bullshit, it's boring. We don't even want to look at it usually,
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
not our interest. Like I used to not care anything about politics at all until I realized, like really realized that, okay, politics are actually a very real part of this whole awakening. And that there's a lot of people that are so entrenched in their politics that need to wake up and realize it's not like Republican or Democrat or whatever like that. It's both sides. But
mm,
we have to really realize the full scope of what's going on in order to correct all of the aspects that have been tainted, including politics. So I
yeah,
never paid attention to politics. And when I did, and I really started going down a lot of rabbit holes and learning some stuff, I was like, holy shit, I should have known this. Like, I should have been interested in this all along because I love conspiracies.
right. Yeah, let's talk about politics because that's I was the same as you, didn't really care either. And it's only really been in the last
Yeah.
year that I've paid a lot more attention to it because of the US election, because of we've had a couple of elections here
Yeah.
too in the last year. And
Right.
we had one in our state a few like a month or two ago. And so with with what we know now is what we know to be true is that they've infiltrated politics too. Why don't we start with what were the biggest things that you found out about politics that made you really go, huh, that's really crazy that you kind of just mentioned.
Just how entrenched it is in the satanic stuff.
Right. And that's something that
Like,
they kind of have to do in order to get into power, like in most situations, like
yes,
in the entertainment industry, you kind of have to do
that's
these
what the
things in
skull
order
and
to,
bones is about.
right.
A lot of our presidents were in the skull and bones or
Yeah, I heard that.
were Masons, you know, and that's what those secret societies are about.
Mm.
And I lost my train of thought.
But the
Go ahead, keep
Masons,
talking.
were the Masons ever a good outfit? And
Yes.
they were.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then
At their
but they
core,
got
when they were
infiltrated.
formed, absolutely. Just like anything else.
Mm.
Yeah. They were the holders and the keepers of the knowledge. The knowledge I'm
Right.
sharing with you. The
Right.
knowledge I'm sharing with the masses.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they were infiltrated and it was used for very negative things. I remember what I was going to say now. Politics are at the core of all of the human trafficking, the
Mm.
bulk of it,
Hmm.
not just gun running, not just drug smuggling, people smuggling.
Right.
That's
Politics
probably the most shocking thing I've
around
learned.
the world, like every
Oh,
country.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all work together
Right.
for multiple reasons. You know, some of it's a blood supply, some of it's a slave trade, some of it's just for sick pleasure, others
Mm.
for ritual. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Right. Yeah, that is difficult, and
Very
especially
ugly world.
there. It is very, yeah. Do you see,
Yeah.
like, I wonder how that's going to be. That I wonder how that will be delivered to the masses. Because we have to know. We have to know. Otherwise, we'll let it happen again. We can't not know about this stuff. We need to know as much as possible, to the point where people don't become really, really depressed about it. You know what I mean? Because if we don't know it, then it will just happen again.
Yeah. And it must be stopped. So we
Mm,
have to let people know. We have to wake them up to it. But we also
exactly.
have to do it in a very responsible manner so that we don't create more fear and panic. We don't
Mm,
create chaos and war, but we actually like come to the table together and figure out how to eliminate it and heal the people involved and resolve the issue once and for all.
right.
But we have to be aware of it in order to do that.
Exactly. Exactly. So, how do you see that coming to light then?
Well, there's lots of people that are working on that now. Robert David Steele is
Mm,
very active in that arena. Um, Mel, what's her name, is very active
okay.
in, yeah, Mel K. Yes, she's
Yeah.
very active in helping to wake people up and bring awareness to this. Um, the Rodriguez guy, the boxer that
Yeah.
works with Laura Eisenhower, he is also helping to bring this to the forefront. He
Right.
actually stepped out of his profession when he learned of this stuff to come forth with his information
Oh,
because
okay.
he's a star seed and he felt his passion, his calling to help bring awareness to this and end
Mm,
it.
okay.
There's multiple people working on it, and the more people we get that can tell the masses, and the more publicity we can get to get it out there to all of the masses, the quicker we can make them all aware of it, wake them up, catch them up to speed, and then move forward to do something about it. You know,
Mm,
Trump did a lot to stop it, but now that they've screwed him out of what's going on, there's only so much one man can do, right? So it's up to us to take over his job to
right.
help finish this.
Okay. But my understanding is there are still a lot of operations going on, and I've even seen some footage around the world of people being rescued, and also people being arrested
Thumbs
in
being,
in and
yeah,
around in that realm.
yeah, dumbs being destroyed, children still being rescued. Yeah, from
Yeah.
my understanding, that's still an active, ongoing mission. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. But there's a woman in.
and you have to understand that the scope of people that need rescued is an unfathomable number,
Yeah, I don't
like
doubt it.
unfathomable.
Yeah.
100,000 children in America alone go missing every year.
Yeah, I know.
And
It's
that's just the
insane, isn't
children.
it? Just in America.
That's just the children that go missing in America. We've
Mm.
got hundreds of thousands of people that go missing in national parks too, and they
Yes,
won't
yeah.
talk about it.
No, because
I mean,
a lot of the entrances to those dams are in the national park, aren't they?
yes, yes. And they even have like underground submarines that are like under Nevada in places you wouldn't think a submarine could even go, that are assisting in trafficking people out from these dumps.
Right.
I mean, it's insane. It's insane, the network, the vast network that's going on beneath our feet and beneath our noses
Yeah, yeah.
of human trafficking. It's
Mm.
insane.
Well, it's a huge
Yeah,
business,
it's
unfortunately.
unfathomable.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it is unfathomable because first of all, I mean, I was kind of only I wasn't surprised, if you know what I mean. Like when people said, okay, well, I was surprised at the sheer numbers, of course, and I don't even probably know the tip of the what I know is probably the tip of the iceberg. But some people kind
right.
of just even deny the whole idea of child trafficking, or even
Exactly.
sex. I mean, it's you even hear stories about it on the mainstream media, so it's not beyond the realms of plausibility,
Right. Yeah,
Mm.
I know people personally who refuse to believe that this is real.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too. Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's like
it's sad.
everything. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Like, how
Yeah.
could you not think that that was a thing? Never mind.
And that, and
Never
even if
mind
you
the.
didn't know it's a thing,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, never mind the fact that it's an industrial scale operation. But you know what I
Right.
mean. Like just to deny the
Yeah.
existence of that, even on a small scale, is kind of beyond me.
Right. And okay, maybe you didn't know, but once it's brought to your attention that it's plausible, that it could be real, isn't it
Mm.
your duty as another human being to at least look into it and see if there's any kind of truth? I mean, I just don't understand how they don't even care to investigate into it further. They just want to dismiss it and say, no, it's not real. It couldn't be
Mm.
possible. Our government wouldn't do that to us. You
Yeah,
know, the 1%
the
wouldn't do that
classic,
to us. Like,
classic,
what?
the government wouldn't do that quote or response.
Right?
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It's
crazy.
just insane.
If anybody, if anybody has lived on Earth in the last 14 months and still want to say that the government wouldn't do that to us, you need to get your head checked, I think, because after all
I
we've
know.
been
I
through over the
agree.
last 14 months, if it's not plainly
I know.
obvious by now, you'll never get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are the ones I guess we can stop worrying about trying to wake up and
Yeah,
save and
yeah.
just go talk to the people that are ready to listen.
They're literally walking zombies at this point. They're not.
That's what I say too. Like
I get
everybody's
it.
like, oh, the zombie apocalypse, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, we're in the zombie apocalypse right now.
They
Like, look
are.
around you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we really are. It's funny, isn't it? Well,
Again,
it's
that
not
goes
funny,
back to
but
that.
it's
Yeah, it goes back to that song, The Sound of Silence, because that's kind of how I view everybody with the AI technology. They're all
mm,
just like a bunch of robots or zombies, you know?
yeah,
I
yeah,
watch people in restaurants sit at the same table at their phones instead of talking to each other.
yeah. That happens often.
We're so, yeah, we're so impersonal.
Yeah, it's true.
There's such a disconnect now.
Yeah, and hopefully it would get to the point like what we spoke about a few days ago, where you know we don't. I don't know how it's going to happen in terms of how we could probably become less reliant on technology and our phones and stuff like that, so that we can actually go out and enjoy life and talk to people that we never spoke to before, because you know what I mean, like just in the street or whatever, because it's it's almost weird now. Like you go talk to someone in the street. Most people think that you're nuts, if you just go and talk to a random person in the street.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But see, that's why there's people like me to teach you to put down your toys and your electronics and to go within and learn your own true power. And then you're already plugged in and connected to each other. You don't need your gadgets.
Yeah.
And then you can interact again. Truly interact.
What do you see? What do you see? Have you looked into the future? I mean, I'm sure you have looked into the future at some point, but my question is, what do you see? How do you think the world will change over the next, say, 3 to 5 years?
Mm.
And I know that's
Well,
a very broad question. I know it's a very broad question, but are there any like big standout things that you could say, okay, well, this will happen, and this will be different?
Yeah, I think we're going to have I don't like to use the word cures because we're not actually curing things per se. Well, maybe we are. It's really more of a sense of understanding how to prevent and heal in the proper way through aligning the chakras and clearing them, and the biomagnetics and the light healing and the sound healing and the thought. Simply your thought can heal you. Changing your thought can heal you. It can heal others. So illnesses will be completely different once everyone starts engaging with their own abilities. And that's a huge one right there, because then we're not limited anymore, right? We're not limiting ourselves and our vehicle that we're in to what society says it should be limited to. The possibilities are endless. And then we move into not needing the same technologies that we have now, and the demand for newer technologies that actually flow with us in a positive type way rather than in an AI plugged into our brain kind of way. It's more like your mind will control the technology rather than the technology will be controlling your mind. You see, it's a mirror flip. Everything about what's taking place is fighting over which side of the mirror we're going to be in.
That's a really good way. Yeah, that's a really good analogy, because everything's inverted anyway, isn't it? So if you think about it, if you think of like what's the opposite of life on Earth, on the planet now, or the plane, or whatever you want to call it, then the opposite would be, no homelessness, no poverty, no disease, no sickness. You control the technology rather than the other way around, and a bunch of other things that I haven't thought about. But
free energy, Tesla technologies, and the beautiful thing about Tesla that a lot of people don't really think about is that it's not just the technology that he created, but the discoveries he made within himself. You see, because that's really where Tesla technology is going to help the awakening take a real foothold into a whole new kind of 21st century. Because when you realize you're the antenna and you don't have to build it, it makes everything different. Yeah.
Can you expand on that?
Well, Tesla said that if you can understand 3, 6, and 9, you can understand the universe.
Right.
Right. And the 3, 6, and 9 is within you. Just like I was talking earlier about how the Merkaba is so important to every life force. That 3, 6, and 9 plays into that Merkaba stuff. And I kind of lost my train of thought when I brought up Merkaba. Let me think about that a second. Back up. So, okay. He realized in his own learning and discovery of how to build equipment that the equipment itself in many aspects was working through his thought, his will, his intent, his alchemical process of it. Okay. So when Tesla's technologies begin to be released and people really start learning Tesla himself, that makes my job even easier for teaching others how to hone their antenna and use it. Because we are creators and we are healers naturally, like naturally, every one of us. We're a walking, living, breathing, biological wireless device that's amazing. Way better than AI. And Tesla knew that.
Right.
He knew it. Einstein knew it too, actually.
But wasn't Einstein controlled?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was much easier to control than Tesla because he was coming from a fear-based space, considering his, his history.
He's into that. Okay. Yeah. And is it the introduction of the Tesla technologies that's going to really be one of the things that broadens our horizons and our mindset because of the way it works? It's going to shatter everybody's belief systems and
it's
people
going to
will
crack
be forced,
open Pandora's box.
And people will be forced to kind of think about things in a completely different way because knowing how difficult it was for me to change my beliefs, and it's still going on. For people that haven't ever tried to change their belief systems before, I would imagine that getting to, because this new world is gonna need a completely new way of thinking on so many levels, and otherwise we're going to just do the same shit that we've done previously if we don't change the way we think.
Right.
So my question is, how is that going to happen? Is it going to coincide with the raising a vibration of the earth? What we spoke about, how people are going to start to uncover different abilities that they have. The Tesla technology is going to also broaden their horizons in their minds, and also you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's going to be many different aspects to how all of that really, falls into place. But much like your path and my path and our dear friend's path crossing, none of us really knew what was going to happen, how it would unfold, maybe even why it was going to unfold. But it was meant to happen, regardless of whether it was today, last week, a month ago, a month from now. I mean, it's all going to happen. The detail, my point here, what I'm trying to say is that we worry too much about the details.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
The simple way to look at it is to trust it, that it will. Just know that it will. Let's not fuss over the details, because there's odds of probability. So things can change. You've got, I just mentioned 3 people that are collaborating, and one of those 3 people could create the ripple effect that alters all 3 paths for some point, right?
Yeah.
So if you take the whole planet worth of, what is it now, 8 billion people or something we have on the planet?
Apparently.
Something like that.
Close to it, yeah, close to it.
The odds of probability are pretty freaking huge with that many people, right?
Yeah.
Because each one of those individuals create multiple odds of probability. So how we get there isn't really as important as why we're getting there. But with that being said, yes, we're going to, there's cyclical things happening that's going to make us more psychic. The whole dark rift of the Milky Way thing that we're going into, that Einstein writes about.
Yeah.
It's supposed to merge the right and left hemisphere of our brain and make us more psychic. And then, of course, we've got star seeds on the planet. They're helping to awaken people and tap into their true power. So that's another way that it'll all take place. Then you've got people that are trying to release the free technologies and the cures for or alternative healing measures against the pharmaceuticals or versus the pharmaceuticals. So there's many, many ways that it's going to unfold. But once that crack happens in Pandora's box, and it's already creaking open, like once that light starts shining out, there's no stopping it at all. It's guaranteed to happen, you know?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like whenever you first started, maybe you learned about your first conspiracy or whatever, or, that's like the crack, and then you just keep going and going and going and finding out more and more things.
Right.
And it's unstoppable.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like when we're learning as we grow and experience different things, like you were saying, you may go down one rabbit hole and learn about some stuff there. And then you're like, oh, I wonder what else I can learn about. So then you have this newfound thirst for knowledge and you start becoming this seeker of truth, right? And you start looking down that path and this path and the other path. And so before you know it, you become very aware that there's so much that you've been lied about or lied to about and stuff. And your eyes, your view of everything changes. And once, like we were talking about with the news media and stuff, once your eyes are open to that, like you can't turn that off.
No.
So there's no stopping it.
Yeah. It is difficult to tell sometimes what's even because of there's so much subterfuge out there and there's so much disinformation. It is difficult to tell what is real. You may see a story and yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you may see a story and you go, well, I know the MSM version is definitely not real, and then you've got a few other different versions that you're seeing on alternative sources, but that you've got to kind of discern for yourself. But people, some people in my life are only really plugged into the MSM. They're like, you don't believe anything,
right?
You don't believe anything that's on the media. I'm like, no, of course not. I can see right through it. And
yeah. And the hell of it is, there is like a grain of truth to all of it.
Sure. Yeah.
At least a grain of truth. Some of it, there's like a whole chunk of truth and like a grain of skewed lies. So you really have to trust your intuition and that vibration, that resonance that you feel with information to distinguish between the bullshit and the truth.
Yeah.
You really have to learn to trust that and listen to it again. And we all have that ability. We just don't listen to it.
Yeah.
Like you have a bullshit radar. You just don't always turn it on.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's a good analogy. Yeah. But it's quite safe to say that 95% of what you see on TV is bullshit then.
Yeah.
It's just interesting that some people still buy it. I mean, and I understand why. It's because they've been trained to believe these sources and they haven't unplugged from the matrix yet, but it is very interesting,
Yeah.
Watching it in play out in front of you.
Yeah. I kind of like to see myself as a watcher, in the sense that it's very interesting for me to watch other people and the way they react to bullshit. Like I'm learning people almost, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one skill that we all kind of need to bone up on, is being able to read people. We need to be able to read people.
Yeah.
It can get us into a lot of trouble if we don't know how to read people and trust ourselves.
Well, that's true. Right. That's true.
Yeah, I speak from personal experience. I have got myself into a lot of trouble, be it not trusting my intuition or being able to read people properly.
Yeah, just being way too trusting.
Yes, exactly. And and it's the same thing with life in any aspect of life, where you're on one side of the scale, and if you're too one side and not enough the other, then you kind of have to go all the way over the other side to find that happy medium, you know.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So if it
Yeah.
means
You
that you
have to
don't trust
really.
anyone for a few years, no matter what, then it has to be like that until you find
Mhm.
your gauge, you know.
Right.
Mm,
Exactly.
yeah, and that's how we learn.
You're getting it figured out pretty good.
Sorry.
I said you're figuring it out pretty good.
Yeah, well, I've had a number of years to work this out. Oh, I mean, of course, I'm still learning, but you know, that was one thing
Right.
that I've had to learn over the last 5 years. Just
Yeah.
yeah, being way too trusting and also just doing my
Hmm.
due diligence, you know, because it's okay to not trust everything as long as you have some evidence to back up
Right.
a decision that you make, you know. So if
Right.
anything, I think it's better not to trust things until you've seen enough to make a decision. And I didn't do that. I just like, okay, I'll just go do that, you know,
Mhm.
I'll just make that decision and
Right.
no research whatsoever. And yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. But it's come up to, you know, almost an hour and a half now. So
Oh wow.
yeah, these conversations always go really fast because they're so.
I know.
I always find them very fascinating, and I hope the viewers do
Yeah.
too. Actually, the last video we did, a lot of people really enjoyed that. So
Yeah. I think when we flow good, that grabs everybody else's attention.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? Like energetically, if you're when I'm watching interviews with people, if they flow nicely together and you know, do you know what I'm saying? Like it
yeah,
just
yeah,
makes
I know
it
what you're
more
saying.
interesting,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Like
Yeah,
you're just grabbed by it more.
yeah,
You're like, oh, what's going on here? This is interesting. Yeah.
yeah. There's an energetic resistance. If the conversation isn't flowing, then there's resistance there, and I think
Right,
that's
right,
transferred onto the viewers in many
right.
ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. Like our energy flow being so smooth and light is like a magnet to them.
Mm,
They want to participate in that energy flow,
yeah.
which does when when we say, does that resonate with you? You're actually feeling the energy of someone, even if you're watching a video, right? Or reading a
Sure.
text. There's an energy signature attached to it
Mm,
that you're picking up on. You know,
yeah.
does it resonate well with you or not?
Yeah.
So, yeah, our energy transfer is important.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. And that's something that we'll learn a lot more about over the next few years, I'm sure. Energy and
Oh, yeah.
and into the future, you know, well into the future. I think I have
Yeah. Because,
one more question for you before we wrap it up. But do you see,
okay.
and this is kind of a funny question because we spoke about, you know, the shape of the earth one time, and you said, do you think
Mhm.
it's both flat and curved? And I kind of agreed with you. And you know, the people in the flat earth realm, they don't think that there's a solar system at all. They just think there's an earth system, and the sun goes around the earth, and there are no planets and all that stuff. I honestly don't know
Right.
what to believe at this point. I you know,
Mhm.
I think maybe there could be planets, who knows. Um, but my question is kind of based off of, let's pretend that there are, or at the very least other dimensions that we can go to. Do you see anything like interstellar travel or, you know, interdimensional travel happening for you know, everyday people like us, you know, in the near future?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Every single being on this planet already astral projects and goes to other dimensions every
Yeah.
single night when they go to sleep.
I heard about that. So basically your consciousness leaves your body and goes to,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
that's like your spirit guides are trying to help you to wake up in the dream state.
Mm, mhm.
So, it's up to you when you wake up. Do you want to remember what you learned and what you experienced, or do you not? And I know so many people that are like, I don't think I dream because I don't never remember anything when I wake up.
Yeah.
And I'll say to them, well, when you go to sleep tonight, say to yourself, I want to remember, and see if you remember the next morning. And the ones that actually remember to say that before they go to sleep, do you actually remember having a dream?
Okay.
It's something in our subconscious in the programming that's suppressing our lessons and our experiences in the dream state. But every being goes out there every time they sleep.
And the consciousness comes back as soon as you wake up.
Yeah. When you wake up, when you first wake up in the morning, you are actually closer, have a closer connection to spirit than at any other point in the day, because you just came back from the real world, the real reality, which is right, because it's all a mirror. Because it's all a mirror. Yeah. We actually live our more full potential as we sleep than we do when we're awake.
Right.
Because most people are just zombies.
I'm kind of wondering, and this is the question I asked you in the last one, like when the matrix is dissolved, my whole kind of projection, or the future projection, or what that would look like, is like the matrix is gone, you know, like whatever the signal that's been the veil that's been lifted over our eyes, or the signal that we've tapped into, you know, being the matrix. Once that is dissolved, I'm kind of like imagining going outside and just seeing like a completely different reality. You know what I mean? In many ways, it's like the scene is gone. You know,
the scene will still be there. It'll just be more vibrant.
Right.
Because, well, let me back up just a little bit. I'm already outside the matrix. Okay. I already walk in that new world and view other people that are still in that old world. Okay. We're all in the same world. We're all on the same planet. We're all walking in and out of the same buildings. But I see the energy signature of the buildings. I can see the vibration in this, what I once thought was simply a solid state, right? Solid matter. I understand the concept. So my view is different. My perspective is different. But it's still the same building. It's still the same tree. It's still the same park bench, right? I just see its energy signature. So it's going to be the same landscape, but more vibrant and colorful, because we'll see it much bigger than what we see it now.
Right. Yeah. Do you think eventually we'll get to the point where we can see everything in the electromagnetic spectrum?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because right now what we see is this tiny
right, the color spectrum is limited.
Everything. Yeah, exactly.
The dimensions, dimensions are limited. You know, some people can see ghosts, and they're called mediums or whatever. They can communicate with what we would refer to as the dead, which aren't actually dead. But yeah, everyone will acknowledge the ghosts. Everyone will acknowledge the aliens that blip in and out of our dimensions. Everyone's going to see a broader color spectrum, because every bit of it is limited by your mind.
Yeah.
It's all around you right now, but your mind allows limitation.
Yeah. That's going to be very interesting.
Did you just get a little bit mind blown?
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of, obviously I don't know, I can't see it right now, but I was wondering, I was just wondering, like, that would be an amazing time whenever that happens, and maybe it'll happen at different times for different people. But yeah, it would be very interesting to see, like, literally the world is not what you think it is. It's like there's so much more to it than what we're currently seeing.
Yeah. For me, my vision really, really transformed and changed after I activated my Kundalini,
Oh, okay.
where you light up all your chakras and you open up to the
Mm.
universe and activate your Kundalini.
Mm.
But in order to do that, you have to face the Hall of Mirrors, which is facing the self, right? You have to go within the self. You have to be honest with yourself, clean out all of your crap in your closet and stuff. But once I activated my Kundalini, like I was in the shower and I could see the water molecules, like the molecules all
Okay.
around me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is going on? Like, why am I seeing all of these little, like, I was seeing water droplets floating up all around me, these shiny little water droplets
Okay.
everywhere, like
Yeah.
zillions of them.
Right.
And I'm like, what in the world? And when I would first get up in the morning, I could actually visually tell that the floor has a certain vibration signature to it, where it's actually undulating very subtly.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were so many things that I was noticing, and things had like this silver glistening outline to them that I'd never seen before. Objects,
Yeah.
solid objects had these strange silver, like very small auras around them. I started being able to see people's auras, which are
Okay.
much bigger than physical matter
Yeah.
auras, but everything has an energy signature.
Mm-hmm.
So you start seeing all of these different energy signatures. And it was just like mind blowing. It was like, I don't even know. It was like walking into Tomorrowland or something. It was bizarre. It was just really, it was really fabulously cool, but very strangely bizarre at the same time. So if you're not like mentally prepared for it, you might think you're schizophrenic or something. you know? Yeah.
Do you think schizophrenics are actually crazy, or do you think they're you do? You don't think they're like people that are really in tune with what's going?
Yeah, that's actually what I was getting ready to say was I think a lot of people are misdiagnosed as schizophrenic and even ADHD and so on and so forth like that are really just star seeds that already have that stuff turned on in their brain. They hear the voices that are the spirits, right? I mean, I hear voices and I'm not schizophrenic,
Yeah.
and I can tell by the voice that I'm hearing whether it's yours or my spirit guides or the angels, or someone's loved one. I mean, I think a lot of people get misdiagnosed. Yeah. And I think that there's also a very real caution to put on activating your Kundalini, because if you haven't done that inner work, that shadow work, and you activate your Kundalini, I mean, it's kind of that same concept as the right and left hemisphere of the brain merging. When we all become more psychic, it can create madness in a person, this huge amount of fear energy that would make them almost unreachable. They have to pull their self out of it. And so you don't want to go doing things like that until you're mentally and spiritually prepared for them, which simply means you have to be completely honest with yourself. You have to own your shit and realize that other people need to own theirs, and that it's not your baggage and pain to carry, and get. But yeah, I definitely think that they were, a lot of people were misdiagnosed. Now, granted, there are such things as mental illness. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm no doctor, so I'm not gonna, point fingers and name names and say you're not a schizophrenic or you're not this or you're, because maybe they are. But then again, maybe they're not.
Yeah.
Maybe they were just more awake than other people and nobody understood them, just
And
like
they didn't
nobody
understand them.
understands any.
Yeah.
Right. Just like no one understands any other star child, and most star children didn't understand themselves. They
Mm.
just felt ostracized and alone. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I was diagnosed as ADHD when I was in my early 20s as well.
mhm.
But I don't know if
A
that
lot of
might
star
have
seeds
had a
are.
bit of different reason. But yeah, I took myself off the medication because I didn't want to take pills. And I'm not ADHD, you know. That's the other thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Neither is my son, and they wanted him on medication, and I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. No, you don't want to be doing that, taking
No,
pills for the rest of your life. It's crazy.
no.
Mm.
Especially if you're my kid and I'm teaching people how to
Oh
create
yeah,
and control
definitely.
their shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That would be a real contradiction of um what is the word? I can't think of the word I'm thinking of, but
Of what you're
or meaning to
teaching.
say.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like a crossing. I'm getting tired. It's like almost 3 o'clock in the morning here.
It is. It is. Yeah. We'll wrap it up. Wrap it up now. Do you have anything else you'd like to say as a parting word, perhaps?
um, don't be afraid to listen to your intuition and ask your guides for help. And don't trust the mainstream media.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I think most of the subscribers or the viewers of these videos don't watch the media
Right,
anyway. Yeah. Yeah.
right.
My subscribers are awake.
Yeah, that's good.
No
They need to come
sleepwalkers.
subscribe to my channel so I can
Yeah.
help them wake up more.
Yeah, go and subscribe to Kelly's channel if you haven't already, everybody. I'll leave the link in the
Yeah,
description. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on
we're gonna.
again.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You're
We're
very
gonna
welcome.
take the world by storm.
We are. And when I come over to
Yeah,
America, whenever I come to America, hopefully sometime in the next, few months, whenever the travel opens again, we'll
right.
take the US by storm.
Yes.
Mm. Sounds good. Well, thanks again, Kelly, and we'll see you next chat.
All right. Have a good day.
Have a good evening. Take care.
Bye.